Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost. I'm the executive director and founder of Theater Resources Unlimited. We're an arts services organization that I created 30 years ago, having the fantastical whim of wanting to help producers because I realized that it was hard to make theater happen in this business. So we've been helping producers now for 30 years, and we've gone through a lot of changes since shutdown, as everybody. Originally, we started doing these community gatherings because suddenly we were in a position where everything that used to be live programming for us couldn't be live anymore. So somebody introduced me to Zoom. Hello, Zoom, nice to meet you. And I learned how to work this whole thing with Zoom recordings, and I've got a green screen, I've got a ring light, the whole thing. And so we've been doing this every week since April 17th, 2020. So this is the 186th consecutive interview that I'm doing today. The original idea was to create community and make people feel like part of the community during isolation. And what's happened is that, well, one of the main things that's changed. We used to be a New York-centric company. That's where we served most of the community, was in the New York area. Then when we went on to Zoom, much to my amazement, we started getting people coming in from all over the country and actually all over the world. And even today, we have people that are certainly not New York centric. They're not near New York. We have people from all over the country, and we love that. And that's why we continue to do this. And I'm going to continue to do this in perpetuity, I think, or at least as long as I'm in body, I guess I'll be doing this. So we are changing our conversations a little bit. We used to talk about COVID and being in isolation. Oh, by the way, I think 3 people that are in my room today, watching us right now, have COVID. So COVID is not over, everybody. It's not over. It's still there. It's still out there. It's not killing people, thank God, the way it was a couple years ago. But nobody really enjoys. Nobody enjoys it. Call us crazy, but we don't like getting COVID. I've had it 4 times. I didn't like it any one of the 4 times. So I always remind people to continue being considerate and mindful and conscious, and think about the people around you, and be careful. So our conversations have really brought it back into the full-bodied live performance that we all were part of for so many years. This crazy business of theater, of making theater. And I've got I think very interesting guest coming on today, who you're going to meet soon. I actually met her at a benefit for a company that we feel very near and dear to, Parody Productions. Ludovica Villarhauser had a gala a couple weeks ago, and I met Orietta Crispino, and didn't realize until towards the end of the conversation that she's the person that is responsible and runs TheaterLab here in New York, which is about 5 blocks from where I live, and started looking up what she's doing and what she's about. And she's interesting, very interesting. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. I'm going to ask her to talk about her background a little bit, because she's a performance artist. And I want to actually have a little conversation about performance art. Many of us are used to traditional theater. Many of us are used to writing plays. This is a whole area, a whole world that I think is of interest, and it could be useful to so many of us. It can expand our horizons, I think. Some of the ways that Orietta looks at theater and looks at how she creates theater and helps people make theater happen. I'm going to bring her in right now. We're going to talk about. I'll be a little less generic, or start talking a little bit more specifically. So, hi, Orietta. Here you are, with your lovely background. I love your painted background. I love that. What is that?
It's I'm in the gallery at TheaterLab. This is one of the paintings by Naoki Iwakawa, who's a Japanese painter whom I presented many years. He's an action painter, and if you can picture what that means, is that he he paints live most of his work together with sound. So we had a performance last week with Ikwe Mori and David Watson, and himself painting this big canvas, and we showed some of his work. And he will be playing actually at Chelsea Factory on Sunday at 5 p.m. So,
Okay. Well, thank you for the nice background. I don't always have as appealing a background in some of my interviews, which people, I guess, are very forgiving of. But this is nice. You look great, and it's very good to have you with us here today.
thank you for having me.
I'm not trying to think where to start. Let's start with your background, because you're from Italy, as I recall, and what was art like in Italy, and how's it different here?
Well, I don't know what it is now. I've been in New York for about 20 years. And so I go back really rarely. So, but the time when I became a theater director and I started being interested in the world of theater was a very exciting time for Europe and Italy politically, and also, even though it was messy, but culturally, certainly. I grew up in Milano, and
Nice
Milano,
place.
yeah,
Nice
yeah, I love
place.
it. I love it. And Milano in the 70s was a great place to grow up, because it was not only the richest, it's in the north, Milano is in the north, and it was the site of not just rich people, because lots of money was there, but also was a working class city. So because all the factories were there, the factories that now you go to Milano and you see Prada and you see, the big Bicocca, they were all auto factories.
It's the fashion capital. I mean,
Yeah, but now there's a fashion, but at that time, so the environment was extremely creative, and yeah, so it was great. It was great.
So how did you find your way to theater? Why was theater the fulfillment of your ambitions and inspiration?
Well, I come from visual arts, so that was, my thing. And then, of course, I fell in love with the theater just because I thought that it was, of all the arts and the disciplines and the things that I was looking at, it was the most layered, the most complex, and I could, employ. I can have space, I can have architecture, I could have text and poetry, and I could have the image. I could fall in love with what I saw and heard at the same time. So I liked it.
So had you transformed beyond just being a director? Forgive me for saying just, but there's so much else that you do. When you while you were in Italy, or did that happen? Did transformation happen when you came over here?
No. When I was in Italy, I had a profession. I was a director. I taught acting at Piccolo Teatro. I was sort of an enfant prodige. I worked with the biggest director, with Giorgio Strehler. Massimo Castri was my mentor. And I had the fortune of being around great people in the theater. So my experience as an independent, or I was hired, basically, somebody would call me and I would direct. My experience with the theater was also related to spaces. I was nobody, but my shows were in theaters with 750 seats. So, and when I came here, it was just I never thought in a million years that I could do anything here in the theater. I wasn't speaking the language. I learned English in my 40s. So it's like, no, it was supposed to be temporary.
Oh, you moved here temporarily. Oh, good. And how long ago was that now?
And that was, yeah, I moved here in 2000, December 2000.
Okay. So it's a very long temporary. So
Yeah.
and lucky for us that you're still here because I think
Oh,
what you do is so wonderful and you provide so many opportunities for people. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about this specificity of your art because you, we all are very clear about narratives and we're very clear about structured plays and we know a lot of us come to this as writers. My community is actually we have a very good percentage of producers as well. Um,
mm,
and you've actually become an entrepreneur and producer beyond the arts. You've actually gotten into the business, which is another reason why you're a very interesting subject for us because we always are talking about combining art and business and how to balance the two.
mm.
So I probably have implied about 17 questions already. So let me see if I can pull one out. Um, what was your path like once you moved to New York? When did you realize you were actually going to be able to stay here and create your work? And when did you start moving into um, let's define performance art. Let's start there because I
Mm.
know that that's one of the key ways you describe yourself.
Well, to be honest, I have to, I mean, thank you. I wish I'm not really a performance artist, or however, because I can't really compare myself to people who have, really made, I really come from classical theater, but then my making, my makeup, I am a curious person and I travel. I'm a hybrid by nature. So I did a lot of projects that you could, when I couldn't do the proper full production in theater, I enter the space of the so-called performance art. Um, and so I develop new ways also of thinking about the theater that's very creative. And but I still look at my work as theater, not, and in fact, I know it's a generic name, but when I conceived of TheaterLab in the late 90s, when I came here, the idea was that I wanted a laboratory really for the theater to examine what live arts could be besides the play, the musical, and so forth. So I don't consider any of the work that I do in such proximity in my space, for example, Let Me Cook for You, my show, my trilogy, for example. You could read it as a performance art piece because it's the way it's constructed somehow between my story, I am the artist and the author, and I'm present. But it's a highly basically theatrical experience. So it's complicated. But
Yeah,
I would say that my tending to other aspect of the theater came when I came to New York, because I would have not have the, even as a producer or as a host, I don't really have the resources to develop new plays. There are places that do it so much better than I could possibly do,
right. Well, let's move a little bit to your programs because I think a lot of my impressions and assumptions about who you are and what you do stem from the descriptions that I read about all the different programs that you offer.
Mhm.
So let me move beyond performance art. Let's just say you're into hybrid performance, live
Mhm.
performance. So you're multimedia in many ways. You deal with art, you deal with the space itself. I'm sure that you use dance a lot. I would imagine, or at least sometimes. And there's also narrative. You do have a little bit of a grounding in script. So you actually you create your work. Where does the seed come from for the works that you yourself create, as well as the programs that you offer for other people to create? Where do you have a jumping off point? Just like the idea, maybe?
Well, first, I don't know if your audience and friends, I don't know if you know, but I build a space for the theater that is all white. So the physical space where TheaterLab exists, and so all the programs and all the guests and the artists is a white box. What's a white box? Well, it's a white room. But why is that for the theater? I built the first one in 2005 in my first venue downtown.
Where was that, by the way?
Say it again.
Where was the first venue? I don't remember.
West 14th Street, between 6 and 7.
Okay.
And 137 West 14th Street. And it was a tiny little room, 14 feet by 50 feet, very long, 12 feet ceiling, and I painted all white. And the idea of starting a laboratory for the theater in a white space was because when I came to New York, I had seen all these black boxes and people, and I was like, why do we try and make a stage out of this? No, this is not a stage, it's a room. And I was always, I thought that I wanted to offer theater makers the opportunity to think about the theater in slightly different way, and to offer a space where the body and the audience are very visible. And you have the white boxes are prepped, their very nature is they offer an object to the eye of the other to be seen and experience. You're etched. Look at me now, I'm like I have a painting, but if you think about you're wearing black, you're in a white space, the feedback that you have is like you can sense, like a dancer, you can sense the contour of your body. So in a small space, that quality of reflectiveness spills onto the audience. And so therefore, the audience themselves, like in a gallery, experience that quality of presence. I believe that proximity within that room, in which the action of the audience, as even if they just witness, in that presence, storytelling changes. And that relationship is really important. That is as much part of your play as the scene.
It reminds me a little bit in terms of art terms of positive space versus negative space. The black box presents an entire room of negative space, while the white box I would think would be considered positive space.
Or reflective, or, it's just where if you cannot hide in a white space, everything is quite visible. Things weigh differently. Time is sensed differently. If you move too fast in a white box, is really a different frames for consciousness, if you allow me this expression. And yeah, so it's an exciting place for new work to exist, and experiment, I think.
Well, I'm not going to ask you a very mundane question. Do you have lighting designers who help sculpt the white space in different ways? The way you would light a white space and the way you would light a black box, I know it would be completely different.
I know.
So but lighting does come into play with it with your in the white space.
Yeah. So it's difficult. A white box is a nightmare, likewise. But when you, so it's but once you understand the principle of it, it's fantastic. And whatever you think about, when you think about the theater, you can do all the emotional lighting thing, the mood, don't work in a white space. You have to think in terms of space, geometry, architecture, and image. The white box helps you create the image. So let's say it works fabulous when you get an image for one scene and not 700 changes. Also, that happens because my space, this venue at 36th Street, unfortunately, is a difficult one because it has low ceilings. So the kind of instruments that you can use, they need to be, a source for, and a space like that just does what impossible to be used. So there's really a crafted way of doing it. But once you understand, you learn the vocabulary of it, is incredible.
So I'm loving this because especially when you use the metaphor of vocabulary. So basically, what we're talking about is we're talking about a very specific theater language. So and I like the idea that I'm exposing my community, the people in the room, to a possible new language for them. Can you? This is a hard question. It may be too complicated, but can you give an example of how you would tell a story in a white space versus in a black space, as a writer or as a creator, as creators who we are, how would we want to think about things if we were going to create something for your space?
Well, my space is, let's say not all the white boxes are the same.
So it's even more complicated. Okay.
Meaning that size really has an effect. The placement of the audience always affects your writing, So when you think, for example, if you have platforms, if you have a stage, and it depending on what is the audience this way, is the stage elevated, all of that has an enormous weight within the creation of meaning, besides the words. Words are, words of the plot, but the way you offer it to the audience in a white space, in my space, which is difficult, as I said, low ceiling, there's a small column in the middle, is extremely geometric, and the audience is right there. Mostly you build work that never fakes them not to be there and includes them in the geometry. So you have to be a little courageous if you want to set, for example, environmental work works very well, yeah.
I want to remind everybody in the room that you please use the chat and put questions in. Jay is going to keep an eye out for any questions. There can be comments, make questions, be part of the conversation with us if at all possible. And if it's a specific question that you want us to address, start the sentence by putting a capital Q for questions so we can actually easily recognize it. Because this is a whole new way. I mean, this is a very different way. It may not be new for everybody in the room. I don't know that. I know it's new for me. I don't think in these terms usually. I'm a playwright. I think in terms of dramaturgical structure. I think of the storytelling. This is a whole other aspect.
Yeah, but Bob, dramaturgical structure is everything. It's not that I don't think about it, but if you want if your work requires a detail, a mirror representation of a living room, and that is your kind of language, you're not going to be so happy there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
in order for that to happen, for that mirroring to happen,
I'm thinking hypothetically that there is a kind of story or there's a kind of piece that somebody in this room is going to think of that's going to go, oh, this is something that would really be beautiful in a white box.
No, it's not the story. It's not the content.
Okay.
Never the content that is a problem. It's how you tell that story. And, the technology of the room, which in simple words, it means the kind of instrument, it's geometry, if you're using projection or not, if you want, the vocabulary of your staging is what it counts. Now, I host, present, produce, and I also rent the theater, right? So, but I curate tremendously in my rental. And the reason why I do so is because if somebody wants to rent my space just because it's cheaper than other theaters, but they would rather do it in a black box, I say no, because they won't be happy. If you have 11 actors, it won't fit. They won't fit.
Okay. Well, I'm looking for specifics as to when I do these on Fridays. One of my subtexts, one of my goals is to inspire somebody in the room or people in the room to think in a different way and maybe consider doing something different with their art than
yeah, the playfulness. Imagine the white space as your white canvas, as your white page, where words and movement and imagery appears all at once. If you think about space as an extension, as your expanded page, is amazing, because the kind of writing you can do on the stage is incredible.
Okay, well, let's go into a few other things because there's a lot to talk about. You describe your TheaterLab as a women and artist-led laboratory. When did you bring in the goal of supporting women artists in your space? How is that folded into your plan over the years?
Well, it started pretty early. It mostly started with me when I had a partner, my former partner I opened the space with. We were just the two of us, and I reluctantly really wanted to do that. But then, very, very early focused my attention on women's work. And in fact, I staged Francarame in 2006 with one of our actress and Dario Fo in Francarame, and all the
Oh my.
mother, and it was a beautiful piece, and she was very talented. And then I went on and did Three Sisters Come and Go, which was this original piece using all of Chekhov characters as if it were three sisters paired with not meshed up with Beckett, the Come and Go. And so in the white space. And in 2009 I had hired also Lani Zipoy, who has passed away last year.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
She was a friend of mine.
yeah, Lani.
She did work with prisons in prisons.
Yeah. Lani I hired her in 2009 when I was downtown, and she stayed with me, and she is responsible for everything that I know about the nonprofit world and grant writing and managing directing, and she gave me so much and worked with me until she passed away last year.
I do
So
remember that now that you mention it. I do remember seeing that.
yeah, and so Lani was a champion of female work, and so especially when I rebuilt, when I left downtown and I built this venue, and I was a member of the League of Professional Theater Women. That's why I know Lodovica. That's how I know Lodovica, and I was part of the international committee. So I try to build kind of naturally a place for women's work. And we, with my team, Lani, Jolene Noel, and Galia Eden, we also created residencies here at TheaterLab to make work together when we could. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go to because you have so many programs on your website. It's just boggling. But I'm sure you don't do them all at the same time. So where should we start? Do we want to start with Round the Block?
So yeah, Around the Block is my favorite. But all of it, when I say is my favorite.
They're all your babies.
Oh, Round the Block is a great program that I cannot really get it together the way I want it, but not yet. Round the Block is celebrating the arts and communities. Started in me and Jolene in 2019. We were asking the question, we've been here for so long, and how come we don't know all these people who are in our neighborhood? We are in the Garment District in Manhattan. And so we said, wouldn't it be great to get people around and see what we make? And just shouldn't be expensive, should be like a way to frame reality as a work of art. And so we would hire actors, and we would do like this 45 minutes tour, literally around the block, and introduce them into taking people really fast and furious to exploring the tenancy of the Garment District, focusing actually on the presence of the independent theater community, which 25 years ago started coming massively here through when Art New York leased space at 528th Avenue, which is the place where we start our tour. And so different tours, we always end at TheaterLab, and we always end with a mini performance, 10 minutes. and then we all drink and talk, and that's
Well,
it.
that's nice. That's fun. I
Yeah,
do see a question in the chat. Paul wants to know, since you speak of playfulness, since it is from your own home, it is from your hometown.
yeah,
What do you think or feel about Vittorio De Sica's Miracolo a Milano? And
yeah.
did that motion picture in any way influence your work in theater?
Yeah, absolutely. So Miracolo a Milano is one of my favorite movies. It's fantastic. I saw it. I saw it again just a few months ago on YouTube. Is there, and it's quite a beautiful expression, beautiful example of how um, um, how you can make narrative and story without saying a word, and De Sica does it in that movie most of the time, and his image is so dense with meaning besides being so beautiful, and how the, let's call it the so-called magical realism of the story gets woven into it in such a poetic way. Is fantastic piece. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Did I answer the
I think
question?
I think that's a great answer for Paul. Paul, is that what you were hoping to hear? It sounds perfect.
Yes, thank you so much. Grazie mille. Yes.
And
Thank you.
and he points out how lovely you phrased this to frame reality as a work of art. And
Yeah,
he said,
because
and he
you
says
know,
shades of Georges Gusdorf. So
well, you know, round the block, it would be too expensive. What am I going to do? Produce a piece for every? No, the idea is to get to activate the street, because also it's a promenade kind of performance where we take people from one space to the other. So in that activating the street, moving from one theater to the pleading or the cutters, you know, in the garment district, or People's Forum, you know, the communist, you know, center or whatever, you know, to see um, uh, it's always about perspective, you know, the artfulness of things, you know, it's all about how you look at it. And if you know what I mean? So then
yeah,
that's how you use the street. The street is powerful because calls the other. Just by walking in a certain way, you will have the other turn their head, you know? And if I can offer that opportunity to see what's around, that would be powerful. But you know,
well, you're doing it. I mean,
yeah, well,
you're not doing it. You're not doing it as big as you'd like to, but that doesn't mean you're not doing something worthwhile. I mean, it sounds
no,
very
no,
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
not. It's never, you know, I know that it works when I do it, you know. I just feel that I wish this could be really a program that fosters reciprocity, which is what we long for, and not just as theater makers or artists, but as human beings, you know. So I know how important is my $30 spent buying panettone at the, you know, Sergimmo, Salumeria on there, you know. So we are part of this ecosystem and community, you know, but it's hard to engender, you know, a true feeling of reciprocity and curiosity, you know.
I think if you persist, you eventually will reach the people that get it. And I think the fact that you're coming from a place of generosity yourself, um,
Yeah, I mean,
it will eventually. I think it'll come back.
yeah, yeah. I don't expect it to come back necessarily. I just
Well, it doesn't come back
feel
in,
that,
it doesn't come back in exactly
yeah,
the ways that you're
you know,
expecting.
not exactly, you
Yeah,
know, but
karma's not quite that black and white. I mean, basically you put it out and something comes back. It doesn't look like what you put out, but it's something worth
yeah,
getting back. Um,
yeah.
one of the things that intrigues me a little is Mothers, Myths, Monsters.
Mhm.
That you actually, that's an opportunity for a single artist to develop work with you. How does that work?
No, that is so. Mother's Myths Monsters is a um, frameworked residency. Basically, we hire, we pay an artist, invite, because we invite a curator, an artist who then invites 2 or 3 collaborators to generate new work individually and together to be presented in the at the same time that dabbles with these resonances, you know, these ideas of Mothers, Myths, Monsters. The first version of that residencies was created for the women of TheaterLab to make work together. And that's how we started the project. And in that residency that happens in my smaller space where I am, the gallery, I developed the first episode of my trilogy, which is Let Me Cook for You. So the first 20 minutes of it in inception form in 2017 was developed during that time. And then it went on and we produced it and all the 3 episodes and so forth. But and then we passed it on to other artists. We had some beautiful ones. And so we pay the curator and then we pay a smaller amount the others. And then we offer about 20 to 30 hours of time in the space to develop the work, and then 2 public presentations.
Let me jump to the mundane again. The spaces themselves. How many spaces are in your in TheaterLab, and do people use them for rehearsals as well? And so tell us a little bit about the spaces, because we've heard about the one a big space, and we've heard about a small space. I'm not sure how many of them are performance spaces and how many of them can be used as rehearsals.
They're all performance spaces for different purposes, obviously. So I have a theater, which is about 1,000 square feet. It's square, you know, it's the end of the hall. It's mostly where we do our curated rental program, TLab Shares. And then on the same floor, we have, of course, we have a reception area, 2 restrooms, you know, blah, 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 offices and stuff. Then I have the gallery. The gallery is good for reading, solo work, rehearsals. It's 20 by 20, unobstructed, beautiful. You know, it has lighting, track lighting. I got a Niska grant, finally put the
Yay, Niska! Yay, Niska! Thank you, Niska.
Yeah. So, and then I recently, last year, I acquired a new space in the building, which is twice as big as the gallery. Is about 840 square feet. And it's beautiful space. We call it the atelier, which in French means a workshop. So it's dedicated to lockout rehearsals, new play. You know, I created programs. There are some of rentals that, of course, is more affordable than the theater, but it's also dedicated to work that is just needs to be on their feet, you know, that don't require a lot of attention. It could be 3 performances in 2 days because you just workshop it, it's like for that kind of work. So less refined and precious, is less equipped than my theater, obviously. The theater is, has new lighting and 3 projectors,
So at what point did you as an artist decide that you could give part of your time and effort and energy to running as complicated a space as you have right now? I mean, it's very complex. And can we assume that it takes you away from your own arts to some degree?
yeah.
So
Oh,
let's
yeah.
talk about that. What was that like for you? How did that decision become about?
Well, first, let's say that the illusion is that you open your own space, you do your own nonprofit, so then you can do your work. Not true.
I can testify. I can testify.
Especially because rents are impossible. So there's no equation. I'm not rich. I funded TheaterLab with my old job at the beginning. But see, my story is a little complex, so I don't think you want to really know that. I did not think that I was going to make any theater in New York. And I was just trying to, survive. I had a job. I liked my job. I was making, a decent salary, and, and then because it's not my culture, I didn't feel I could direct actors. My subtextual work was very, very sophisticated. I didn't think, and then it happened more because my partner wanted to, and then it happened. Then I had to go part-time with my job, and so I don't think that I take a lot of pleasure in at this stage in my life at fostering others. And I think, and I'm good at it. I think I am better, actually, that there are the better parts of myself are actually in that realm of if I fall in love with somebody, I kind of, I am able to, let's say, creative produce them and support them. I take a lot of pleasure when I do that, and I don't feel that I'm missing something. I do, though, have a lot of things that I would like to do that I wish I had more staff, and especially now I'm understaffed, tremendously understaffed. So so things have gotten a little complex in that respect.
You know I completely relate, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't open TheaterLab just to be a landlord, to be a rental house.
It was your life. It was your lifetime ambition. As a little girl, you said, "I want to grow up and be a landlord." It's like,
And an evil one.
oh.
No,
I've got the mustache I can twirl.
I just don't have, this is a labor of love, and I didn't know anything about nonprofit. Lani taught me everything, and I still
I think we taught her. She was in my producing program.
Yeah, I mean, she had so many talents, and
Yeah.
was able to bring so many people together. So I owe her a lot, really, really a lot. So
Yes, I have wonderful memories of her. Oh, oh well. I did not I did not remember that we had lost her last year until you mentioned it.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
So let me again to the room. Is there anything that you would like to know? I mean, there's more programs. This woman has so many programs going. It's just unbelievable.
I
But
mean, I can make a very quick overview,
okay, why don't you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, so because we host, present, and produce, and we run a TLab Shares is a curated rental program. So you apply, I check it and say, oh yeah, this could fit. And the relationship with the artist is I do my best to support you, give you the best space, but you pay me rent. It's affordable. You can pay me through your ticket sales, and I don't take your ticket sales, right? Then I have TheaterLab Presents, which has is when we participate and we're not completely producing the piece, but we present. And so we develop a relationship with the artist where we can say, okay, I'll give you 30 hours to develop your piece for free. And then you do 4 performances and we do 50-50 split, for example, or other different configuration on how we can support artists that fit our either season or idea for the season or whatever, right? Then we do the active programs, which are those residencies. One is, you heard, Round the Block, which is a program, which is a production. We pay everybody, and we do it two times a year. We try. Then we do Mother's Meets Monsters. It's a dedicated residency. Then I have my longest residency program for inception work. It could be one scene, it could be an idea. It's called Hotel New Works. It's in the format of an open studio for live arts. And we invite different companies, artists, and we invite them within 40 hours, within 2 weeks, to develop a portion of their work and to invite the audience into participating in the breakdown of the process. It's free for the audience and for the artist. And then we don't do impermanence anymore. We used to paint live in a performance the gates of the building, but now it's difficult.
I was wondering about that. I read about that and I wondered if you.
Yeah, it was great gathering in front of, there was the garbage there, it's like crazy. We were painting live in a performance, the gates of our building. And so we had permission from the landlord and whatever. So it was a way to activate that part of the street, which is really terrible. And people, walking by, that would stop and take pictures, it was great. And then what else do we do? Well, we used to be with Lani, we used to do the readings of the plays written by inmate in this prison in Kentucky, Voices Inside, but we stopped doing it. And then we do recurring production, a mini fest, which is a festival of miniature work.
How miniature? How small?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the range of running times for the pieces?
Oh, it goes from 3 minutes to 10.
Okay, 3 to 10. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
yeah. And there's painters, and this year was all dedicated to magic. So there was a mini lecture, there was a magician, there was a puppeteer, it was great. It was a live installation, a worked for one that was a painter. She made beautiful mini things, are fantastic, and mini food. Anyway, it's and then we do one big production a year if we can. Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty broad range. So what do you do to keep busy?
Say it again.
I said, what do you do to keep busy?
Wow.
Like, my goodness, you do a lot. So, well, I'm trying to think if there's anything I wanted to find out that I haven't asked. The only thing the key thing for me is basically that I relate to is the division between artist and business person, and it seems like you've kind of accepted that's part of your life, like I did too. I wasn't expecting it to happen, but it happened, and once it happened, I embraced it, and I try to do it as best as I can and keep things running. So I've kept TRU running for 30 years.
I mean, that's impressive, but you made a life for yourself through your passion, and there's a lot of meaning in gathering, in putting together, sharing resources, collecting resources, all of that is incredible, So
well, I think you're similar to me. Basically, one of my core values is service. I mean, it's and not everybody's born with that particular gene, and not everybody needs to have it. But some of us come into this world, and at some point we go, I get a lot of pleasure out of serving other people and helping other people. And that's what you get.
Yeah, me too. And, but it's you actually saying something really crucial for me, because for me, for example, I'm sorry, I go back to Let Me Cook For You all the time, but in Let Me Cook For You, the first episode in which I actually cook for the audience eats, it's a piece for only 15 people at a time. And I wanted the audience, even though the piece is not about food, I wanted the audience I wrote the piece because I wanted the audience to make the connection between, in a life of service, between the theater and making food. Through that, I wanted to pass this idea of what is a life of service to the self and the other. And
I wonder if we share a favorite movie. One of my favorite movies is Babette's Feast.
Oh, great. I love it.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
You know what I did? I love that movie so much. I actually invited a group of friends over, and I cooked them dinner and took them Babette's Feast after dinner.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not too dramatic, am I?
Because in the intimacy of the space, it's like because I mean, in the piece, it was also about me. I designed the space and I built it and painted, and there's also this osmosis, almost it's scary between me and the space itself, so the care that it took and it takes to keep the space going and maintaining and making it clean and white and offering to the other is part of this idea of the art and the artist as in a life of service, of an idea of the offering to the other is everything. You can make the most beautiful thing and you don't know how to give it to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically the two parts that I always that everybody knows is basically creativity and then communication. So basically, creativity is part one, and then the ability to communicate is crucial. It's not as fulfilling for many of us if what we've created doesn't get communicated in a clear way.
Yeah,
we all do what we do because we want to touch people. And I mean, move them, change them, inspire them.
Yeah,
So and I think that's true of almost all the people on our planet. And different people do it in different ways.
absolutely. I agree. I
So
mean,
on that philosophical note, I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna ask the room if there's any. Oh, Susan has a question. Susan, I didn't notice. I didn't see a hand raised. Susan, please come in and ask your question.
I just raised my hand because it's too much for the chat. So, but I'll compress it for the purposes here. So, you do so many different tasks, and I'm just wondering if I have to do anything beyond writing, they start to bring on anxiety attacks. And I get through them, and I've had some experiences in the past year where I did everything, produce, direct, do the costumes, do everything, and which sort of took me back to my early community theater days, which was fine because that's where I learned all that stuff. But I'm wondering, with your very, all the different tasks you have in your life, which give you the most pleasure and which make you most anxious? Sorry to ask that question, but
no,
I'm
no, it's
curious.
fine.
I'm
I
curious.
mean, you know, first, the organization is a small organization, but it's actually big. So up until 2 months ago, I had a studio manager, I had a associate program, there's people helping, but not I am the only one on payroll full time. So even the 25, 28 hours of the others are not enough, right? So right now I took on part of the client management, which I don't want to do. That gives me a lot of trouble and requires a lot of time. The other thing is how is the feeling that finding money, developing relationship, and all the parts that should be my job, and that I don't really have time to do properly because I still clean the space. That gives me a lot of trouble. So I know that I'm still the person who can generate a lot of energy and passion. And so it's my job, to meet people and talk to the funders and do that, but I don't do it enough because the reality of running the day-to-day operation these days has made me basically stuck in here all the time.
I would go out of my mind if I had to also take care of a venue in addition to everything else I do.
You're so stuck, you froze on my screen.
Oh
dear.
So I'm going to wrap up because I don't see other questions, and I'll be right back. I'm gonna go into speaker view again.
Okay.
And I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna thank you so much for being with us today.
Everybody.
Thanks to my room, thanks to my community. I want to thank the people out there. If you stumble upon us on YouTube or in our podcast series, I want to invite you to consider being part of the room itself, coming and being part of this. I can make that happen. All you have to do is email me. Just email me at trunltd@aol.com. trunltd@aol.com. And I'll invite you every week. You can come into the room and you can ask questions. Or you can continue following us on YouTube and in our podcast series as well. We do this as a community service. One of the end thoughts that I wound up bringing up with Orietta was the whole idea of service. And I wasn't kidding, and she's not kidding either. We actually gain a lot of pleasure out of helping people. And
Yeah.
for that reason, I have no problem with you coming into joining us at pay as you can. I don't turn anybody away who can't pay. However, if you can pay, we would love donations. We would appreciate it. You can come for nothing to join us here in the room every week, or you can pay as little as I don't know we're at $9 or something like that, or $8. I don't know what it is. Or you can give more, or you can just donate to us. We're at TRUN. No, that's my email address. We're at TRU Donate, TRU Donate, TRU Donate .com. That's TRUDonate.com. Give us a little end of the year. It's December. We're heading towards December 31st. This is the tax deduction time. This is like when you're thinking about, well, maybe I should give money to my favorite not-for-profits, whether it's TRU or it's TheaterLab or any other not-for-profits that have helped you or served you. Consider giving an end-of-year donation. That would be a real nice thing to be really grateful for. And I got some great things coming up. Next week we have Dave Elliott and Martin Platt are going to talk about. We were talking about with Australian and UK producers about how the development process is significantly easier in UK than it is in the US. And we're having a follow-up to that with Dave and Martin, who are going to talk from the point of view of American producers about when they think they can actually use the New York resources to develop new work, and when they feel they just have to go to UK and make their life a little easier. The following week, I'm very honored to say we have Richard Maltby coming, award-winning director and lyricist Richard Maltby. He's going to be here, and we're going to talk to him about what he's been doing and how he balances being a writer and a director. He's equally famous and equally successful as both a writer and a director. And how does he do that? Seems like magic, doesn't it? And then in January, we're going to have Sue Masuki, who's a producer and entrepreneur in cabaret. We're going to talk a little bit about the current cabaret scene. Every week, we're going to do something different. So join us, and thank you for being with us today. And I hope to see you and maybe meet you soon.